So hi, I'm Sally Kenney. I'm the director of the Newcomb Institute, and I'm really delighted to have a chance to meet you face to face and to introduce you to Newcomb alumni and other Tulane grads, and to welcome you to campus. So with me today is Anneliese Singh, who is our brand new Associate Provost for Diversity and Faculty Development. And we have so many things in common, both our interest in political science and women's studies.
Right.
And it's so great to have a Newcomb alumna in the senior leadership position, and also somebody like yourself who's so committed to really working intersectionally across a number of issues. So we're so thrilled to have you here. And my job is to get you to talk a little bit about your time at Newcomb. So what do you take with you from your time at Newcomb College?
Thank you, Sally, for the warm welcome back. It is amazing to be back at Tulane University, and great to sit down and speak with you. So many things I take away from my time here as an alum. I remember I read my very first Black feminist scholars here, Bell Hooks, Sojourner Truth, and I was exposed to so many new ideas and ways to challenge kind of whether it was sexism or just different systems of oppression that maybe I hadn't really thought about before. So I also remember just having wonderful professors in, I guess, what's now called gender studies, who encouraged me to keep writing, to deepen my understanding not only of myself and the world, but also the change I could make and to be able to write about that. And so it's no chance. I think actually I was encouraged to become a writer today. That's what I do. I'm a faculty member. I have an active research agenda, and I'm an academic who actually loves to write. And I trace all that encouragement back to the professors that I had at this very university. So I have taken so much from Tulane University, and I'm excited to be back here today.
We hear that from a lot of people, that what you've identified as they're exposed to new ideas, but one of the things I think we're trying to do at the Newcomb Institute is to continue that tradition that you experienced at Newcomb College, which is to encourage women to take themselves seriously. And as you have a PhD in counseling psychology, you're a very successful academic who's published a lot and written a lot, and you have to take yourself seriously to be an academic writer. You have to think that you have something important enough to say that it's worth that sacrifice and dedication to pursue that idea. And that's, I think, the kind of confidence building value added that we really hope to contribute through the Newcomb Institute and our activities. And that's what we hear from so many people that they got at Newcomb College. So what inspires you now to do the work that you're doing in the Provost's office?
That's such a great question. So, I mean, being back on campus, I feel like the campus inspires me. I know that it's a very challenging time right now to do this work during a pandemic, but I think the campus has been so very clear that values of equity, diversity, inclusion are just really important to who we are and the very fabric of who we are as a university. And so there are some people that still inspire me from when I was here as a student, like Carolyn Barber-Pierre. I remember being in her office as a student, just learning so much from her. And many of the student groups, like the leaders at Tulane's Black Student Alliance, the Muslim Student Alliance, and all the student leaders who are just innovating in so many different ways. I remember being part of a feminist student group when I was here, so to just see how student organizing and activism has evolved on this campus has been quite inspiring. And I also have to say, interacting with the faculty staff here has been really pivotal for me in learning the very unique role that faculty and staff have in promoting social change on our campus. And I attribute that right back to President Mike Fitz. I have to say he's been very clear with us as a campus in setting up the Commission on Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And I think Provost Robin Foreman's support of faculty initiatives around equity, diversity, inclusion. So I share all of those people who inspire me, because I think it really hasn't been one layer of the community. It's literally been every layer. And I think as we move forward and kind of dream up the university we want to be, you know, as Newcomb College, as Newcomb Institute, that we want to be in the future, we're really planning for probably 2030, you know, as we kind of take up these initiatives and really think about the role that we have in making sure our campus is not just equitable, and that's not just a word, but that we actually mean it, that we care about each other, and we want to make sure that people have the best experiences they can have while they're here. So I have been inspired every day on my job, and I feel super lucky to be here.
I remember when we first had our first Zoom call, and I met, one of the things that most struck me about you was that I feel like you just exude positivity, and we had a conversation about working to combat sexual harassment on campus, and you really encouraged me that we needed to keep going on this work even though it was a pandemic. And as somebody who works on women judges, and now we've just lost Ruth Bader Ginsburg, some people ask me, you know, how do you keep going when you're discouraged? And you have been particularly outspoken for racial justice. And so how do you manage to keep that positivity at times that seem so dark?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Sally. I mean, I think right now we are in history-making times. It's weird to think we're always making history, her story, and T story, T for trans folks. But I think as we're in these history-making times, we're really having to dig deep about what values are important to us, how we want to, the legacy we actually want to live, and that actually the relationships we create really matter, and that we can make change right now in our specific settings. You know, I've studied racial justice, racial inequity for a couple decades now, and I wrote the Racial Healing Handbook because I just, as a mixed race person of color, I just got so tired of having the same conversation over and over again about race and racism, where there were so many misunderstandings. And you know, the literature, the empirical work is really clear, and all the freedom fighters who fought for racial justice are very clear. They're very specific, proactive steps we can take all the time, like knowing our own race, knowing how to actually give voice to a word like racism that feels scary to talk about, but then you know, seeking a lot of understanding and knowing that depending on your race, you're going to have a very different experience of the world, and that actually we care about that for folks of color, and especially in New Orleans, you know, the impact of anti-Black racism in the city of New Orleans and on our campus. So I think I maintain hope because, you know, there have been all the freedom fighters who came before us who not only had that same hope, but they fought so hard so we could have these conversations that actually lead to change and aren't just talk. And so I feel like now more than ever, I don't think we're in a window of opportunity. I actually think we're in the clarion call for that next level of change. And I think we feel that as a community here at, you know, Newcomb Tulane. I think we also feel that in our specific settings, no matter where we're working on campus. And it just requires that, you know, we be open to new learning. And I think opening our heart to listen to the experiences of racism on our campus in different ways. So I think that positivity also comes from my parents. You know, my parents were an interracial couple. You know, I was raised in New Orleans, and seeing the things that they experienced really taught me a lot about, hey, like if we actually just talked about this a little more and just made it a regular everyday part of the conversation. Yeah, like let's loosen the fear a little bit. And I think when we do that, we just come into our full humanity of just being able to understand not just what diverse groups of people experience, and sometimes I struggle with that word diverse, but that our perspective on the world in terms of our race isn't the only one. And that once we learn about that, we can actually start getting busy and making change. So it's probably the political scientist in me as well. So I know you get that, and you've worked on that so much in your own life. And picking up on that question, I know that there's so much that the school has been doing and offering to so many, you know, in this current time. So I was wondering if you could share a little bit about, you know, what has been inspiring you and what have been the different initiatives that you've been excited about recently in the school.
Well, like you, I find that my students help me stay positive and inspire me to keep going, because I feel like I can't give up because there's too much at stake for the future, right? So that helps, and we have more than about 26 student groups who are doing active work. It's a challenge to get them all together remotely, but we're going to get on the other side of this and continue to be a gathering space. I think one of the things too, we were just talking about the vice presidential debate, and I think Senator Kamala Harris really demonstrated what we'd like to teach our students, which is how to disagree without being disagreeable, and talk about race in the way that you mentioned, that invites allies to join the cause. And so I think she's been really successful at that, and is a great example of a new kind of leadership that we'd like to champion. And I think we want to encourage everyone, men and women and gender nonconforming students, to be equally passionate about gender equity and serving everyone. And I think that's what the new Newcomb is really all about, is in the way that you talked about anti-racism, is really bringing allies in and not seeing the work as, oh, that's your work. It's everybody's work. And so we can partner together. So I'm really delighted to have you as an academic colleague in the psychology department, but also as an ally and a colleague in the Provost's office for our work on faculty development and equality.
Thanks for the welcome, and Sally, I have to just say thank you for the path that you've paved at this university, at Newcomb. I think your leadership has obviously been transformative, and I have to say, as a returning community member, it's like, so heartwarming to see that the very things that I benefited from on this very campus are not only like still here, but like leveled up in so many ways. So I have so much gratitude for you for that leadership, and excited to see what happens next.
And we want to invite all the alumni to tell us what they're doing, how they're advancing these causes. We're going to have a Newcomb magazine out shortly that's going to be online for the first time, and these opportunities to help us keep in touch. So thank you for being a part of this virtual connection in this very odd homecoming year.